Technology.
Thanks. All right. As all of you know, my name is Sarah Baker. I'd like to thank you for taking the time today to come and listen to my communication speeches. How can we have more productive conversations with employees when coaching their behavior? Being clear and specific with expectations and enforcing those expectations in a firm, fair, and consistent manner will lead to having an effective disciplinary conversation. I will discuss how to assess your employees' behavior, determine the correct type of discipline, and how to communicate an effective disciplinary meeting. When beginning the disciplinary process, ensure you assess the current problem and the employee's previous performance. All company policies and expectations should be clear and specific. Confirm that the employees understand those policies and are thorough with their understanding. Remain impartial by reviewing your company's handbook or written policies before going into the meeting. All disciplinary actions should be documented, whether it's written, whether it's just a slight, hey, next time don't do this, make sure that that is documented somewhere. You should always review the employee's file to understand their background and history with the company. After reviewing their file and the current infraction, decide on the appropriate corrective action. Creating a disciplinary chain or a clear pathway for corrective actions is imperative to a fair workplace. The following are different types of corrective actions. Typically, the first step is counseling or training, and that is so that all employees can be educated and aware of all of the policies and procedures. The following step is verbal warnings. Those are typically documented behaviors that are connected to potential consequences if the behavior continues. A more formal documentation is written warning, which generally includes an action plan for correction or improvement of their behavior. The most serious forms of corrective actions are suspension and termination. Before going to this last step here, HR, Human Resources, or legal counsel should be included in this conversation. This is typically the final step in a disciplinary process. After evaluating the problem and deciding the appropriate action, you need to conduct a disciplinary meeting. Let's review some key points to having an effective conversation. Make sure you are straightforward and focus on the current issue. Often leaders want to add positive performance information, but this leads to confusion or convolution. Make sure that the meeting is in a private location, but there should always be a third-party witness. Being private allows for comfortability of conversation and open dialogue. And the third party is there in order to recall any information if something is confusing in the future as to what was said. You should always ensure the employee understands the impact of their actions. How did it impact the budget? How did it impact other employees? And how does it impact the community you serve? It's important that they understand how their actions led to certain consequences. Make sure that you are clear and concise when telling them the consequence that you are trying to apply to them. This should include an action plan that allows for follow-up and allows for employee improvement. The employee should always understand, and they should also understand that further consequences may come if improvement is not seen. Make sure you always allow for questions and comments from the employee. This allows for a closed-loop conversation where the employee can add anything they may feel that they need to. During this meeting, it is important to remain calm, be respectful, use a steady and even-tempered voice, and always keep your body language approachable. After the meeting, it's always important to establish a method of follow-up. This ensures that there is closed-loop communication and structure within the disciplinary pathway. Setting up a meeting with their employee after the disciplinary meeting, so like 3 months later, a couple weeks later, will allow for them to discuss their improvements in their behavior or performance. Also understand that further disciplinary action may be needed if no improvements have been made. I have discussed how to assess the employee's behavior, determine the correct type of discipline, and how to communicate effectively during a disciplinary meeting. I appreciate you guys taking the time, and I hope you've learned a few key takeaway points.